Usually, when a fire alarm goes off in a building, the absolute only instinct you have is that you just make the noise stop.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Right. You plug your ears, you rush for the nearest exit, you're, looking for the reset button. The entire goal of that moment is simply to end the disruption.
Just get back to whatever normal was like 5 seconds ago.
Exactly. You just want the noise to stop.
Hmm.
But what if the only way to actually survive a fire is to sit down, listen to the exact pitch of that alarm, and let it completely change the way you think?
That is a wildly uncomfortable thought.
It really is. And that's exactly what we're getting into today. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're exploring the really uncomfortable mechanics of why pain is often, the only teacher we actually listen to.
Yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow, but so necessary.
For sure. So our source material for this deep dive is this brief but just incredibly concentrated piece of text titled Pain is a Teacher. And it's part of a broader collection called The Silent Battles.
Which is such a great title, by the way.
It really is.
Yeah.
And our mission today is to unpack the philosophy packed into these few lines. We want to figure out how a really uncomfortable experience transforms into actual wisdom and, the specific mechanisms that make that happen.
Right, because instead of digging through a giant stack of academic papers today, we just have this one really poignant excerpt. It's like a concentrated dose of insight about human resilience.
Yeah, and for everyone listening right now, you experience pain, we all do. It's the universal baseline of just being alive.
Sadly, yes.
But the text makes this crucial distinction. While pain is universal, actually extracting value from it is incredibly rare. Some people go through the fire and come out forged, and others, well, they just come out burned.
And that difference, it isn't just luck, it's not random.
Right. So we're going to dive into the exact difference between those two outcomes. And rather than jumping straight to the end result, the wisdom part, let's start right where the text starts.
The immediate impact.
Exactly. The undeniable impact pain has on our internal state. Okay, let's unpack this. The text says, pain has a strange way of changing us, and that it forces reflection.
Yeah, that word forces is doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
It really is. Because think of it like an analogy, right? Compare pain to a sudden roadblock on a highway you drive every single day.
Oh, I like that.
You don't want to stop. You're annoyed. But the roadblock forces you to pull over, turn off the engine, and actually look around at your surroundings for once.
Because otherwise you just keep zooming by.
Right. But I do want to push back slightly on one word here. Why does the text use the word strange? Like, what is actually strange about pain changing us?
Well, what's fascinating here is how that word forces ties into human biology. Naturally, we totally avoid self-examination.
Oh, completely. It's exhausting.
It is. It's tedious. It's uncomfortable. But pain removes the choice. You see, the brain is fundamentally an energy conservation machine.
Right. It wants to be efficient.
Exactly. It's only about 2% of our body weight, but it burns like 20% of our energy. So to keep from burning out, it relies heavily on autopilot.
Because autopilot is cheap,
Yeah.
calorically speaking.
You nailed it. Actively examining your flaws or, your unresolved trauma, that is a hugely expensive cognitive task. Your brain will do anything to avoid it.
Like scrolling on your phone for 3 hours.
Yes. Or working 80-hour weeks, or filling every quiet moment with background noise. So the strangeness the text mentions, it's about how something inherently negative, like pain, is often the only catalyst powerful enough to break that autopilot.
Because we just won't do it on our own.
Right. We only change when the pain of staying the same is finally worse than the pain of changing. Think about it for you, the listener.
Right.
Your own periods of deep reflection were probably born out of necessity, not convenience, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You don't just sit on a porch with a coffee and decide to dismantle your entire worldview for fun.
Nobody does that.
Right. So once this forced reflection starts happening internally, the text shows how it rapidly bleeds outward into our external lives, specifically into our social circles.
Ah, the social audit. This is where it gets tough.
It really does. Because the text explicitly says it shows us who truly cares. And sometimes it removes people we thought we needed.
Which is a very polite way of saying it ruins some friendships.
Yeah, exactly. Here's where it gets really interesting, though, is the text suggesting that pain is actually doing us a favor by isolating us.
It is, even though it feels terrible in the moment.
It's like, okay, think of a massive stress test on a bridge. Engineers run extreme weight across it. And if pieces start snapping off and falling into the river, It's terrifying. It feels like the bridge is being destroyed.
But the engineers are taking notes.
Right. It shows you exactly which beams are actually bearing the weight and which ones were just, decorative.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it really highlights the duality of those two lines. On one hand, it illuminates true support. It shows who truly cares.
And on the other hand, it prunes the false dependencies.
Exactly. It removes people we thought we needed. Because when you're thriving and comfortable, you have a ton of surplus energy.
So you can afford to maintain those decorative beams.
Yes. You can deal with superficial or draining people because, hey, maybe they're fun at parties. But in a crisis, your surplus energy drops to zero.
You literally don't have the bandwidth.
You really don't. And that forces a profound realization. Who we want around and who we actually need are often completely different groups of people.
But wait, I have to jump in here. Losing people during a hard time, it feels like a secondary injury. It feels like salt in the wound when you're already down.
It totally does. Rejection always stings.
So how do we reframe that for the listener going through that? How is that a good thing?
Well, while it feels like a secondary injury, the source is framing it as a clarifying lesson. A fake support beam is way more dangerous than no support beam at all.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because you might lean on it and it just snaps.
Exactly. When Cain enters, those superficial relationships just can't hold the weight. Shedding them keeps the whole structure from collapsing.
Which is super useful, but deeply, deeply unpleasant.
Very unpleasant.
And that perfectly sets up the text's core definition of what pain actually is. Because the text says pain is uncomfortable, but it is also honest.
The brutal honesty of discomfort.
Right. And juxtaposing uncomfortable and honest is so striking. I mean, it's almost like looking in a mirror under horrible fluorescent lighting in a gas station bathroom.
Oh, that is the worst lighting.
It is. But it strips away all those flattering, soft focus filters we put on our own lives.
But I want to ask you, we usually associate honesty with, like, a person telling the truth.
Right, like a friend being straight with you.
Yeah. So how can an experience be honest?
Well, this raises an important question about how we construct our realities. You have to contrast the honesty of pain with the comfortable illusions we tell ourselves when things are fine.
Because comfort allows for a lot of denial. So much denial. When life is comfortable, you can lie to yourself about your career, your relationship, your bad habits. It's essentially a warm blanket of self-deception.
You're just ignoring the check engine light because the car is technically still driving.
Exactly. But pain is the engine seizing up on the freeway. Pain destroys the denial. It doesn't negotiate with your illusions.
It just gives you the raw, unvarnished reality.
Yes. It shows you exactly what your coping mechanisms really are and what your environment actually looks like.
So for the listener, when they feel that intense discomfort in a hard time,
Often what they're feeling is just the friction of encountering a truth they had been actively avoiding.
the friction of the illusion breaking, that makes so much sense.
You can't get the truth without the sting of losing the lie.
Man, that's heavy. But facing that brutal honesty, staring at the wreckage under those fluorescent lights, that is the precise threshold.
It is the turning point.
Right. It's where we either stay miserable or we step forward into growth, which leads right to the text's ultimate conclusion.
The ultimate transformation.
Yeah. The text gives us this final instruction. If you learn from it, it becomes wisdom instead of suffering. And then it connects back to that footer, the silent battles. So what does this all mean?
It all hinges on that one tiny word.
If.
Yes.
Because that's the practical step the listener is looking for, right? Pain doesn't just automatically become wisdom.
I wish it did. But no, time doesn't heal all wounds. Time just passes.
Right. It requires that active step of actually learning.
Exactly. Because suffering, in this context, is framed as the default state. If you experience pain but you refuse to extract the lesson, you just suffer.
You're just complaining about the bridge falling down instead of looking at the blueprints.
Perfect way to put it. Wisdom, on the other hand, is the reward for enduring all that honesty and forced reflection we just talked about.
It's the rebuilt bridge.
Yes. And tying it back to the footer of the text, the silent battles, it emphasizes that this entire process happens quietly.
It's not public.
Not at all. The reflection, the relationship auditing, the learning, it's all internal. It's happening out of sight from the rest of the world.
It's happening at 2 a.m. when you're just staring at the ceiling.
Exactly. That's the silent battle. It's exhausting, and it's invisible to everyone else.
Which is why we really need to remind you, the listener, that the power here totally lies in your hands. The pain is going to happen. It's inevitable.
You can't dodge it forever.
Right. But the suffering, that prolonged suffering, is largely a byproduct of just not engaging with the teacher.
It's what happens when you refuse to take notes.
Exactly. So just to quickly recap the journey of this deep dive today,
Hmm.
we started with how pain forces a massive involuntary pause. It unplugs the autopilot.
Which is terrifying, but necessary.
Right. And then it audits our relationships, acting as that brutal stress test on the bridge.
Hmm.
It delivers absolute, unvarnished honesty.
Breaking all the comfortable illusions.
Yeah. And ultimately, it brings us to a choice. We can either stay in prolonged suffering, or we can engage in those silent battles to acquire new wisdom.
It's a huge shift in perspective. And, it leaves us with something really important to think about.
I'd love to hear it.
Well, if pain is a teacher that imparts wisdom, does living a life entirely dedicated to avoiding discomfort mean we are also systematically avoiding the very lessons we need to become wise?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that hits hard.
So the next time you face a silent battle, ask yourself, are you just trying to survive it, or are you ready to take notes?
Are you just trying to survive, or are you ready to take notes? I love that. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep seeking out those aha moments in your everyday lives,
Yeah.
even in the uncomfortable stuff. We'll catch you next time.